Plato's Republic is an extended conversation about what justice is and whether it is something good for human beings. The chief participants in this conversation are Socrates, who's the narrator, Thrasymachus, Cephalus, in whose home the conversation takes place, Polemarchus, Cephalus' son, Glaucon, and Adeimantus. We don't see much of Thrasymachus and Cephalus after Book 1. Glaucon and Adeimantus are Socrates' main partners in the dialogue. They're Plato's brothers. The dialogue takes place in the Piraeus, which is about 5 miles outside of Athens and serves as its port. Though the opening scene serves as a prelude to the main conversation, it's still significant. Note what happens in the scene. Polemarchus and his friends want Socrates and Glaucon to stay in the Piraeus rather than return to Athens. They appeal to their greater strength to convince them to stay. Socrates asks whether he might persuade Polemarchus and the others to let them go. The scene raises some important questions. Does might make right? Is persuasion better than force? In any event, Socrates and Glaucon decide to stay, and the group of friends goes to the home of Polemarchus' father, Cephalus. Socrates and Cephalus get into a discussion about the value of wealth, and that discussion demonstrates some initial ideas about justice. Cephalus thinks that wealth is necessary but not sufficient for living a good life. How wealth is used matters. As Cephalus puts it, a good person won't bear old age well if they're also poor, but a bad person who's wealthy won't be happy either. What relationship, then, does Cephalus see between wealth and justice? And why does Socrates disagree with him and argue that justice cannot simply be to speak the truth and to repay what one has borrowed? After Cephalus leaves the discussion and goes back to his sacrifice, Polemarchus takes over his father's argument. He alters the argument slightly, saying that justice is giving to each person what they're owed. What concretely does Polemarchus think this means? What is the appropriate thing to give to friends and to enemies? And why does Socrates argue that Polemarchus's understanding can't be right? And as you think about that, you might also want to think about the similarity between the argument that Socrates makes here and his argument in the Apology that if he corrupts the youth of Athens, he does so unintentionally. As Polemarchus struggles, Thrasymachus becomes impatient. He bursts into the discussion with a claim that justice is the advantage of the stronger, that is, of those who are powerful and clever enough to rule. He thinks that rulers make laws that work to their own advantage, and then call obedience to those laws just. But do rulers ever make mistakes about what's advantageous to them? And if they do, then it doesn't make sense to say both that injustice is what works to the advantage of the stronger, and that it's just to obey the law. Thrasymachus attempts to adjust his argument, and he ends up making a bold claim that you can find at 344c. He says, "Injustice, if it is on a large enough scale, is stronger, freer, and more masterful than justice. And, as I said from the beginning, justice is what is advantageous for the stronger, while injustice is profitable and advantageous for oneself. In short, he claims that injustice is to be preferred to justice. Is he right? Or is justice something that really is good for human beings? Consideration of that question continues in Book 2.